Hi, I am the Jordan, coach of the Virginia Vikavolt, and I recently began a Pokemon VGC draft with the Skypillar Stadium League. I am super new to making content, but I intend to make videos that are educational and interesting not only for the coaches in my league, but anyone who's getting into Pokemon VGC, which has been growing since the pandemic. That's when I started it anyway. Today I'm going to devote 2 or 3 minutes to discussing each team drafted in SPS and its potential as I see it. Disclaimer, this does not account for player skill. A great coach can make an iffy team great and vice versa. Also, I don't know everything, so don't be surprised if your team is voted lower or higher than you expected. Don't be sad, this is all trying to be constructive here. And it's a chance to show cool surprise tech that I might miss here. I have a rough rating system, not the end-all be-all, but a good summary of where I think the team is stronger or weaker. Offense is, can you OHKO, that's one-hit KO opposing threats? Can you KO mons before they get to move or set up? Can your max targets sweep entire teams? Defense is, can you survive max moves? Can you easily switch into strong moves? Can you stall out Dynamax with damage-deafening tactics like Snarl or Intimidate or Screens? Type synergy. Do your mons cover each other's weaknesses? Does your team overall have weak points, and how big are those weak points? Speed control is, can you go first, both at the start of the battle and as it goes on? That's pretty straightforward. And X Factor. Does your team have specific synergies and alternative win conditions that might not be covered by the other categories? For example, beat up plus justified, weakness policy self-procking, redirection plus a nuke, the ability to stall out endgames with something like Celesteela. If any of these terms are unfamiliar, we've got rich resources online, people writing about this stuff, but hopefully it's helpful enough for newer and more advanced folks, and hopefully this is all constructive. Today I'm going to be reviewing 8 teams that I believe are in the lower half, or at least I ranked in the lower half, and then the top 8 in the next video. I don't feel like starting off on a negative note, so I'm going to start off with who I'd otherwise put at the end of this video, rank number 9. This is Team Liquidation, coached by Vinny. This is a good team. There are some opportunities for improvement, but overall I'm pretty impressed here. The first 2 mons drafted, Lando T is a ridiculously good Pokemon, and so is Cinderace probably, which kind of depends on whether the opponent has a way to outspeed Cinderace turn 1, in which case Cinderace gets blown up because it's not very durable. But Cinderace's type-changing ability makes it really hard to prep for, and it has some interesting tech moves like Coaching and Taunt and Court Change. The speed cheering is very nice. It stretches the range from very high to very low. Vinny will often have the speed advantage both in and out of Trick Room. I would say the speeds are a little extreme. I don't see why opponents with mons between 30 and 90 base speed would invest much into speed at all, so Team Liquidation might become outbulked in that scenario. It would also be pretty obvious from team preview whether this team is pursuing a Trick Room strategy or a Tailwind strategy or neither. There's only one user of each of these moves, and Noivern is almost certainly not coming when Vinny wants Trick Room, for example. The Trick Room core is led by Escavalier, who I think is a fantastic, versatile attacker. Still, 2 of the slow mons are weak to fire, also Bisharp, who might want to come in the slow mode, and the other 2 are weak to dark. So I worry that Torkoal might eat the entire Trick Room mode here, and maybe something like Scrafty as well. But only one team has each of those Pokemon. It's Draft League, so in several matchups this will be a strong Trick Room core. I like the type balance here, not a ton of shared weaknesses. I'm a little concerned that Lando and Noivern both are nuked by a random Ice Punch, but other than that, great job. There's no glaring weaknesses. I see a Fake Out, I see Intimidate, I see Snarl, Haze, Yawn, Spore, all these ways to slow down the game and reposition if turn 1 doesn't go well, so well done there again. The main thing I'd recommend is maybe a new bulky mid-speed mon, something like a Rotom or Tapu Fini, like a discount version of one of those 2 that can be brought whether you're going against fast mons or slow mons. This might be able to make the team win more consistently rather than win or lose depending on whether they control speed. Finally, I'd probably trade in a Mungus. I don't really believe in playing top dollar for a mon that's completely stopped by an item, being safety goggles. It's a good tournament Pokemon, but in Draft League you can probably find more versatile mons for that price. On to rank 16, the Ho-Oh-Ho's, coached by Granky. I love the name, but honestly, I don't see what this roster is trying to do, how these mons work together, what lead combinations would be strong together. But I will start with the strong pieces, and there are a few good ones here. Incineroar is possibly the most oppressive Pokemon in VGC history. That's a good start. You don't always have to run its classic best 4 moves. I see enough coverage in Incineroar for Assault Vest sets and Weakness Policy sets, propped by Lucario's Vacuum Wave, for example. Lapras has perhaps the very best G-Max effect, giving you a ton of free survivability. You're kind of forced to max Lapras, otherwise it's just a Lapras, but what it does with G-Max Residence, it does very well, and it makes Instant even bulkier. Togekiss is one of the better redirectors, with strong offensive presence as well. Unfortunately, it has 5 weaknesses, and that's where you start getting to some of the main issues I see with this team. All the shared weaknesses. The top 3 mons I just mentioned are all weak to Rock, and Rock Slide is one of the most common moves in this game, so this team might be buried under a pile of boulders. We've got 6 ground weaknesses, that's a lot. Now, Togekiss can redirect attacks and it's immune to ground, but you don't want to put all of your weight on Togekiss because then it'll just get removed and then the stomping tantrums come out. Fighting weakness is a bit of an issue, though we do have plenty of resists and immunities, but people are going to bring Brick Break to stop Aurora Veil, and that's like a combination good attacking move and a ton of secondary effect. I'd like the team to build around 2 of Togekiss, Incineroar, Lapras, and maybe find another mon that doesn't share weaknesses with those 2. That can sit alongside them in the same mode, whether it's fast or slow or in between. That gets the other main issue I see, which is lack of speed control. We have no Tailwind users, Togekiss doesn't get it in this generation, and then the 2 Trick Room mons are weak to Dark. There's some speed control here with your Bulldoze and T-Wave, but those are for mons you're more likely to max, and you won't get that speed control effect when you're maxing. I see a couple of good synergies I want to encourage. Dracloak and Lucario, the beat-up Justified combination. Those are 2 good mons that can output damage and form a good fast mode. Gengar is a good suicide lead with a Focus Sash. It can burn something or set up Trick Room, while Lapras sets up Aurora Veil. And then after that, and Gengar is gone, then one of these other guys can come in and be productive, even if it's on the frailer side. I would trade Heliolisk. I don't think it synergizes with this team. And I would maybe trade something that shares weaknesses with the others that you won't be able to get as much productivity out of, something like Claydol. This team has a solid base of support moves and priority. So that's the good stuff you want to build around. I just want to see a new attacker that covers the others and Tailwind. All of these mid-speed mons are going to love Tailwind. Next we have Shelgontbijt. It's an Australian thing, I don't know. But this is coached by Electric, and I believe this could be a strong team. It's just not quite there yet. I think it needs a few transactions first, but I'll get into the good stuff that I think Electric should continue to build on. Grimmsnarl has perhaps the most diverse priority move pool in the whole game. Puts a ton of pressure on opponents to guess whether it's going to weaken them or buff its allies or just do other shenanigans. Spectrier is very strong and very fast, just enough variety on its move pool so that it can be either offensive or supportive. That forces some guesses as well. Sylveon, that's a good especially defensive backbone for a team. One of the best typings in Fairy. And it's got support moves like Yawn and Helping Hand that can help it mix up between offense and defense. Kartana has the single highest attack stat in the whole game, and you can't really argue with that, but it has a well-known weakness, very little special defense, and a double weakness to fire. Kaboom. Kaboom. That's where I start to get to where I believe this team could use changes. Most of the threats have big weaknesses that can stop them in their tracks if opponents are prepared for them. In Draft League, people will prepare to target your weak points, and Buzzwole, the other big attacker here, has a tiny special defense and another double weakness, this one to flying. Moltres is a double weakness to rock. I would struggle to know who can lead this team each week because something's going to be just removed all at once, even when it's maxed, because they're going to target your weak points. If you remove Toxapex, which is, I think, too passive to do much, then the lack of defense becomes even more stark. Grimmsnarl Screens and Sylveon are a good start to a defensive backbone. I just want to see one of these 3 attackers swapped out for something more durable. The second of 3 issues I want to highlight is a excess of natural speed rather than bulk. I actually am impressed with the gradual speed tiering here. It's just we could spend a little less points on natural speed and more on speed control. You want to be able to turn on the speed when you need it, but Regieleki's speed is frankly unnecessary. I worry that a lot of these mons are going to get one good hit in, but then be OHKO'd in return at that. In Regieleki in particular, can't hit ground moves, ground Pokemon almost at all, is neutralized by Lightning Rod. I just think for these points, you can maybe invest in more durability and also more speed control. Currently, our Trick Room setters are Jinx and Swoobat. Jinx is a pretty good support Pokemon. That was obtained at a discount. That was a good choice. But both of those mons are weak to both Rock and Dark. They're not always going to be able to set Trick Room. And I think if you get a more durable Trick Room setter, then Trapinch can go wild. That was another great pick for 1 point. Very strong. And cute. That's important too. But if you can also get a Tailwind user, which we currently don't have any of, then these mid-speed mons can become a lot more threatening, like Sylveon or Buzzwole. In conclusion, my suggestion is build around the strengths. I've gone over them. But you can maybe pick one of Spectrier or Kartana, Regieleki, maybe 2. It's up to you, but no more fast frail guys. You want to be able to turn on the speed, but not be forced to be very fast when Trick Room goes up, or be able to kind of allocate your stats a little bit more to each team. I think it sounds like a lot that I'm saying could change, but honestly, this could be accomplished in just 2 transactions, something like Sigalith and Blastoise. This team is not far off. Good work. In 14th, we have the London Silvallys, coached by James Easy. I'm going to call him James. First off, I see Beat Up Cobalion and Hustle Dracozolt, 2 very strong offensive threats. That's a good start to the team. But after that, I'm a little underwhelmed by the team's variety of offensive threats. Cursola has a big special attack stack, but personally I've never really seen it used that well. Crocodile and Articuno are good. They can do things, but they have a lot of weaknesses as well. Volcarona and Mineshaw, they have offense for sure, but they're hardly max threats because they're both pretty frail. It's the relative frailty and inconsistency of these attackers that makes me give lower marks for defense as well. If an opponent coach is really prepared, his team may die sometimes before really getting off the ground. Type synergy is good. That deserves some praise. The biggest hole I see is that 3 of the top attackers are weak to ice and flying. Those are big weaknesses there. Also there's a fairy weakness, right? Yeah, oof. This team has speed control, more so than the previous 2 teams. Both Trick Room and Tailwind found on Whimsicott and Articuno, but sometimes they're going to die before they get a chance to do much. Whimsicott is great, don't get me wrong, but it is not built to last. The speed tiers are slanted in favor of the fast mode, so this team's going to struggle to win in Trick Room. It does have a lot of taunters, so that's going to be able to stop Trick Room, but some teams just have redirection and fake out and Trick Room, and it's very hard to stop Trick Room in those situations. I see other synergies like Lapras, Ice Shard, onto all the Ice Weak Pokemon to proc a policy. I just recommend this coach maybe find one new all-round attacker with few weaknesses that won't need great positioning to be productive. That's really all I think would be needed to turn this into a great team. Okay, the New York Applins, coached by Robin. This team gives me dread. Personally, I think some of the strats I see here are no fun to play with or against, but I can accept that I'm biased here, and others might see more consistent strength on this team than I do. All is fair in love and Pokemon. Nothing personal, Robin. Let's just get into it. Colossal. Dragapult or Azumarill trigger Colossal's steam engine ability and weakness policy, making it insanely fast and pretty strong, and once its signature G-Max Volcalith is out, you are headed towards defeat unless you have specific counters to this. Luckily, in Draft League, you can prepare in advance with strong water moves, strong ground moves, Trick, and other prankster shenanigans, and this makes Cold not nearly as good in Draft League as some folks may think based on its success in high-profile tournaments. I think the success on Colossal is largely due to open team sheets. I think Colossal loves to see where the super effective moves are that can destroy it so that it can plan and position itself and force opponents to take a coin flip whether it's going to attack or not. I believe Cole teams are extremely high variance without open team sheets and need to be built around supporting it. Luckily, Robin has smart Colossal pairings here. Azumarill can sweep if the opponent feels forced to set the rain. Ferrothorn can stall out endgames while opponents are taking Volcalith damage. There's also a Trick Room option with Colossal. Bronzor sets the Trick Room and uses Bulldoze to trigger the policy, and then it also is immune to Cole's ground weakness, so it can do ally switch nonsense. But the two Trick Room options here are both taunt bait. Gothitelle and Bronzor, I think everyone should bring taunt against them. Also, just stop Gothitelle's other silly, annoying strats, most notably Perish Trap. What is Perish Trap? Gothitelle prevents you from switching. Azumarill uses Perish Song. The Applins stall until you die. If you're out of position against this team, there might be nothing you can do. But if you have a counter to this, then the Applins are stuck using these passive Pokemon, and you likely just win. So it's just very swingy for better or for worse. Lastly, I had tough times trying to make use of Dragapult's natural super speed in another Draft League. If the opponent brings their own speed control, Dragapult can crumple easily due to its middling bulk, 5 weaknesses, and just short of great offense. It's got amazing type coverage. It's a good Pokemon. That I'll acknowledge. It's just it has trouble leading the team, and often you just need to put a sash on it and expect it to do one or two things before it's gone. So I expect Robin to win some, lose some, based on the high variance nature of these strategies. If Robin is an amazing player, they could do well. But Robin is definitely going to go for this stuff when we play later this season, because I've revealed how much it tilts me. And that is a smart play from their perspective. Good mental damage, as Wolfie might say. But all right, let's get the hell out of here. Team Daniel, the league's favorite troll. What you should see first is the Nut Core, Nihilego, Urshifu, and Thundurus. These were the premier hyper-offensive trio in our competitive format. They have wide offensive coverage, they have defenses that cover each other, and they all hit very hard and pretty fast. Tapu Fini is also an amazing all-rounder Pokemon with a diverse enough moveset for Draft League. That should complement the Nut Core well, give it some defensive backbone. But we have 2/3 of a top-tier competitive squad right there, so that should be terrifying. But Vinny didn't have a lot of points left. Not Vinny. Daniel didn't have a lot of points left after this, and I think some of the other choices are pretty niche. Uxie is next, another defensive Pokemon that has Trick Room, but with Daniel's speed, they're more likely going to be imprisoning Trick Room to try to stay in fast mode. This might be bias on my part, but I've rarely seen Imprison do well. Opponents can either double into the partner, and then Uxie is just left sitting there with its 1 or 2 move slots left, or they can double into Uxie, and Uxie can only maybe survive 1 or 2 more turns, so it only kind of stalls the inevitable. Maybe that's enough in some matchups. Psychic does have excellent type synergy with Urshifu, and Uxie can do other annoying stuff like screens or ally switch. Cottony was a bargain Prankstermon. We have a couple of slow options. I kind of feel like they're last resort if you can't stop Trick Room. I think Glisspod's a little awkward, but it's a cool mon, don't get me wrong. Diggersby, I don't know what Diggersby does besides hit pretty hard, and then Pikachu is a Pikachu, so we'll just end it there. Team Daniel is reliant on the Nut Core for nearly all of its damage, both its natural speed and its speed control with Thundy's max Airstream and Prankster option. I do think Thundy is an amazing Draft League Pokemon, But this is the most top-heavy team in the league, and to me it's an open question whether draft teams are strong enough to beat Nut plus Vinny plus 2 with specific preparation. Honestly, we'll see. For now, I'm guessing that they'll be in the third quarter of teams. Now we have the East Coast Clawitzers. This team confuses me, but which is not to say that I think it's a bad team. I think this is a great team. I like almost every Pokemon on this team. That should be, I hope it's high praise. There's just not quite enough variety. I think too many points, like a third of the slots and the points were devoted to priority stuff. 2 prankster Pokemon, and Talonflame is mostly good for priority flying moves like Tailwind. You only need one of these 3, in my opinion, maybe 2. And they do different things. You know, Lipard's got the Max Guard Copycat Trick Room with Stakataka. Look it up. It's weird. It's good. And then Klefki is Prankster Screens and Prankster Weather. But they just don't do quite enough distinct from one another. Woo! No editing. We don't do editing here. I think if HZK drops 1 or 2 of these priority users and grabs 2 to 4 new versatile Pokemon, then they're all of a sudden a great team. A couple of new max targets. I feel like Stakataka is the king on this team and is the max target most of the time. Urshifu and Rotom Heat are great Pokemon, but they have great moves that they don't want to lose by maxing. Rotom Heat's got Will-O-Wisp and Eerie Impulse and Electro Web and the rest, and Volt Switch. And Urshifu has got, of course, Surging Strikes. Gastrodon is another good Pokemon, but I would prefer, instead of maxing it, to have it switch around and protect Rotom and Stakataka from water moves. It's a little underwhelming as a max option, though it is possible with the Life Orb for you to max Gastrodon. So everything, we should talk about the remaining Pokemon. I think these are great Pokemon. Dusclops is a god tier Trick Room Pokemon. It was the MVP of my first draft league. I have love in my heart for Dusclops, and I think Togepi is useful redirection as well. But this is one of the only squads with only 9 Pokemon, and if you just got 1 or 2 more threats, like a Dragonite or a Mamoswine, I think those 2 are both available, then this team becomes a great team, probably in the top half, almost certainly in the top half. This is a good team, so well done. Finally, Cheesy and the New Jersey Jellicents. A nice team, a nice logo. We have lots of good logos in this team. Cheesy had the first pick, so it makes sense to start there with Glastrier. Glastrier is a broken Pokemon, the best combination of power and bulk in the entire format, and when it becomes fast under Trick Room or with Pheromosa's Speed Swap, this Pokemon routinely crushes entire teams by itself. We have a quality Trick Room setter in Bronzong, and redirection with Tangela, so they're often going to get Trick Room, and some teams just can't prevent that, especially if Bronzong's carrying Mental Herb to prevent Taunt. What's crazy is that despite this big Trick Room win condition, Cheesy's team also has a couple of super fast options. Tailwind on Tornadus, a pair of max Airstreams here, and of course Pheromosa, and then a Prankster option with Meowstic. So we've got this super fast, we've got a very strong slow, but then we've got this giant chasm. So apart from that chasm, great work. But I would recommend something to fill in this gap that can work in either fast or slow modes. Type Synergy is good. The ever-present rock weaknesses here as well, including both primary Trick Room Suikers, Dirt and Glassinator. Glassinator, that's a new Pokemon, I love it. I don't think Mindfu or Scraggy is going to be coming that often. Those are like the only rock resists besides Bronzong. So Bronzong kind of becomes the linchpin of this whole team, where if the opponent has a way to get rid of Bronzong, then they can just pile on the rocks and other and the ground weaknesses and the poison and everything else. But if Cheesy can protect his Bronzong and just keep it being a thorn in the side of the opponent's team, then they've got a very good team. Primarina and Turtonator have almost perfect type synergy. I really like that duo. And Cinderace is a wild card due to its type changing. So there's a lot of good stuff. And there's a lot of good ways to win, not just good stuff in isolation. I just think something in this middle here that can just give the team a lot more variety that covers both modes. That's all I would really recommend. This team has offense, it has defense, it has speed control. It has support moves. Well done, Cheesy. I look forward to fighting you in week 1. Hey, we have an ending. If you are seeing this, it means I figured out editing just a little bit. I want to thank you for watching, for being here as I figure out how to make videos. If you haven't heard your team yet in the SPS, it means I think you're in the top 8. Congrats. If you have, don't fret. 0 weeks have been played. There's plenty of time to prove me a fool. I'm planning to get the last 8 together and upload them in the next few days, so stay tuned and farewell.